possible sleeves.
Like three.
That's something. Yeah, the card full size too.
And then if I was off of 22, it can go low. It's red or green.
Yeah.
You just say when and.
Yeah.
So nice to see everyone. Oh, we're ready. Oh, well, good morning, everyone. All you wonderful early birds. Welcome, and we'll do roll call.
Sure.
For it.
Samantha Ross,
Present.
John Hamilton, President, Thomas Grogan, yes, Zachary Fisher, here, Jeremy Mackay is excused. Douglas Meltzer, here, Ashley Ward,
Here.
Davenport.
Yay, moving on. Approval of agenda, motion to approve, please.
Motion to approve agenda.
Yay, John, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? And then approval of our June 5, 24 minutes. All move to approve. Thank you. Awesome, any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? Perfect. Public comment, we're gonna turn it over to, no public comment. There's no public people in here. We'll move it over to our, number one action item, election of the chair and vice chair.
So it's the new fiscal year, so welcome to the fiscal year 25 and over 24. So, part of it's the required by the bylaws of the board, like vice chair and chair. So we must spend March or April, so pretty quick. Just accounting. So in your packet, last page, there's a process to nominate both for the chair and the vice chair. So it's you guys to
Where we were.
yeah,
All right.
the chair and the vice chair.
I'm gonna nominate Samantha for chair.
I accept.
Great, that's
I accept the nomination.
the other nominations for chair. Probably just roll these in together, so you can vote at the same time. So that vice chair.
I'm gonna nominate Jeremy Mackay. He isn't present, but we did talk about it, so yeah, someone else wants.
Your nominations for vice chair. Okay, so we have Samantha for chair and Jeremy for vice chair. Vote. All in favor? Aye. Nays, okay.
I'm sorry, did somebody second?
Second. So, I'm assuming.
So that's it. So we're gonna for Jeremy question.
Slim margins.
Yeah,
100.
John,
Yeah,
there's no, there's no,
good job,
all right. We're gonna miss you.
Wow.
So we still have John's agreed
For
to,
9 years.
yeah, he's termed out technically, but he's agreed to stay on until his position is filled, so thank you, John.
And just, and I know this isn't on the agenda, but 9 years is a long time to volunteer, so just a little round of applause. He moved all the way down from Portland, so that was just very cool, so much appreciated. Very cool person. Okay, so, discussion items. Ethics and public meeting. We're gonna turn that over to board member again, Ryan, is it loose?
Loose.
Loose, okay. Awesome, welcome.
I just want to welcome Brian for joining us
Oh.
for our in-person meeting.
This one from Definitely. Oh, sorry.
Well, good morning. My name is Ron Lewis. I'm Assistant City Attorney at the City of Salem. About 7 years, starting in November. Part of my responsibilities is doing public records, public meetings, and ethics training for public officials. Some of you have seen this presentation before. But it's important to think about the issues as you conduct your terms. Congratulations, you're a public official now, which comes with some responsibilities that you do or as your service. Okay. Go. I'm gonna get rid of this. Oops. Yeah, we get, oh, that'll work. Good. Well, what are public meetings? Well, in Oregon and most other states, almost actually all the states, it's the intent of the open meetings law to ensure that deliberations and actions taken by governing bodies are done in public forum. We want to make sure that we don't have public officials who are in back corners making decisions that the public ultimately who we work for, so that they have all the information on how they're making, that public officials are making their determinations. And that's outlined in Oregon Revised Statute 192. Our meetings continue, public policy and purpose of public meetings ensures that all meetings of governing bodies, like I said, are done in open forums, that public's businesses and deliberations and decisions are open to the public so they can listen to how public officials are ultimately making their decision. They obviously can't participate unless they have notice, they know where it is. Meetings like this, we put public notice so that the public's available, they can, it's a hybrid meeting, they can attend online or of course come in public. And it's accessible to all. Well, what meetings are subject to this public meeting clause? Applies to all meetings of a governing body, of a public body, which a quorum, which we, certain percentage laid out by your bylaws, to make a decision or deliberate towards a decision. A public body is a city, county, or other subdivision of the state, and this is a governing body of that public body. A governing body means two or more members of a public body that have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to a public body or administration. In this case, we, for this board, we make recommendations to the city council who make the ultimate decision, but your recommendation is still a decision of a governing body. Governing bodies, council, DAB, all of these boards and commissions are considered governing bodies of which you guys are officials. What meetings are subject to the law? Well, this is obviously a public meeting. We noticed it. We have a quorum and you're deliberating. You voted on the next chair. It's a meeting, it's a convening of a governing body for which a quorum is required to make a decision or deliberate. It applies to all meetings, even if the sole meeting is to come together for information. You're getting that information that you will utilize later. You've got work sessions, you want to gather information from engineers or other members of the public. But it's not a public meeting. Well, if you have less than a quorum, you can't hold your public meeting. Or in some cases, if you're going to say, we want to look at a piece of property, in West Salem, we want to maybe consider making a recommendation to council to do something with it. Well, if you're just going out to do an inspection, it wouldn't be a noticed public meeting, but as a public official, you'd be prohibited from discussing or deliberating your purpose to go and have an inspection. It allows the group to go as once rather than having to do it individually. So you could have a quorum of members do a site inspection, but it wouldn't be a public meeting because you would not be deliberating and discussing them. Just gathering information.
Can we ask a question?
Certainly.
As you go, so with that example, I know that we're gonna be meeting actually, I think, here in Second Street. So in the event someone starts talking about what happens, I mean, that brings it up just in social.
And as a public official, I remind other public officials that, this is a site inspection and not a public meeting, unless you have a public meeting at that, and it's been noticed, and that's where you get called on a, raw piece of land, but.
Just a gentle nudge.
But if you were out there, it'll say, well, we really need to do this recommendation, I would recommend as a public official, make sure that they're not engaging in
Sure.
meeting violation, just, I'm shutting down my mind that.
So Tori typically does things like that, so we can, Tori, shut
Yeah,
down.
the fun one.
That's it, you can John's thinking citizens rock.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this person.
Okay, here's where we run into issues with public meetings. And there's been a couple of cases here in Oregon, actually, in Lane County, so, locally here. What happens when public officials, they're part of a board, and sometimes they get themselves in problems. These things and computers lead to lots and lots of issues. In Dumpty versus Handy, public officials were found to have violated public meetings law through serial meetings that occurred through email. So we had one public official put together what they thought would be a good recommendation. Okay, and they drafted up an email and they forwarded it to one next, council member. They reviewed it, passed it on again and again. So you have this serial communication. So it's no different than if one public official went to the office and another and had a discussion in a different office. You've created a public meeting atmosphere where deliberations are occurring between the public officials in the absence of a noticed public meeting. So make sure that you're not having individual communications, that you reserve your deliberations for during open meeting sessions. There was an investigation by the Attorney General's office and public officials because of the nature. There was an attorney on the commission that was familiar with public officials, public open meeting laws. So there was $20,000 in personal liability. The county does not pay for that. That was out of the pocket of the commissioners themselves. And the county had $350,000 worth of liability for this, which ultimately was deemed to be like a near deliberate act. It was trying to thwart these laws. Lessons from Dundee. Email, be very, very cognizant. There's a second half of this story after the county commissioners were obviously not really happy with each other. There was a lot of turmoil and strife amongst them. Serial meetings violate, for various reasons. There's less than a quorum, deliberating outside of the public, and there was knowledge of the law. We're being educated in the law, but we had people that was their job to educate others, and they failed to comply with it, and it was determined to be willful conduct, and there's no protections. In that particular case, the first half of that case, the counselors went to the county attorney and asked for a determination from the county attorney whether this action would be a violation. The county attorney wrote a memo that said no, it's okay. That did not save them because it moves us a little bit farther. Public officials, I'm not your attorney, and actually the city attorney is not your attorney. When it comes to ethics and things, you have to make those determinations yourself. There are resources available, but ultimately when it comes to ethical questions and things along those lines, kind of on your own, there are resources that I'll go through to assist you on making good decisions. Another issue to the reply all letter. Be very careful with this one. The second half of this is one of the commissioners was setting, and if you have an email that goes to everyone about when the next meeting is or an administrative matter, those can be discussed because it's not something that you're creating to make recommendations for. It's purely administrative. So you can separate the administrative. Are you available on the 15th? You can all communicate on things like that. It's not deliberations. We're talking about a parcel of property that you may be recommending to the city council to purchase. That's the type of communications, the communications that should be happening here. Second time, Lane County got in trouble. There was a email sent out by a staff member asking if the group was available to discuss the first WD problem, see if they were available, and one of the counselors hit reply all with some deliberation materials included. So inadvertently or sent this information out. The court looked at it. There was a quorum that received it. It was a technical violation, but they didn't hold them personal because there was no intentional act involved like the previous serial. Still a violation, but they weren't found personally financially liable, but it's still a violation that occurred against the public officials. So be cognizant of that. Use of personal computer and your emails. As a public official, if you conduct your business on your personal computer or on your personal email, that is subject to disclosure, public records law, and it's also subject to discovery in litigation matters. I always recommend if you are conducting business on your phone, if you're sending an email to staff, we will maintain that record as a public record. If you're deliberating amongst yourselves without CCing staff, those are things that could be discovered, and they are sold as public records are solely on your personal property. So keep that in mind. If you're, if we have a staff member attached to the email and you apply for your sending, we'll be able to maintain that. But if you're emailing to each other for even administrative purposes, which is you should be emailing each other, those things are subject to public records requests. On occasion, since I've been here, we've had to reach out to public officials and obtain emails from their personal devices. Having done litigation in other states involving people's personal devices, really want to avoid having the court take your phone, make a mirror copy of it, and then have some people you've never even met before go through. Even if there's nothing there, it's something I would try to avoid. So don't use your personal stuff for email without using protections such as CCing, your staff members, so that we don't have a public records protection issue. What's a public record? Well, we're talking about all, emails are easy, letters are easy, but even scraps of paper can be public records. Anything that is prepared, owned, used, or retained by state agency or political subdivision has to be for an activity, transaction, function of the state. If, hey, you guys want to go out to lunch, next week, that's not business of the city. It's necessary to satisfy the fiscal, legal, administrative, or historical policies, requirements, or needs of the state or political subdivision. All of our public records are subject to state retention and city retention schedules. Some things we keep for 75 years, some things are very long retention periods, some things are less. We have the obligation to maintain those records. So we want to ensure that we are following the law and that our public officials are also following the law. Public official ethics. 3 main topics: conflict of interest, gifts, and use of government property. We have where we get our information. We've got the Oregon revised statutes. They set out a minimum standard for ethics. We as a city decided, our council decided to make them stronger. We're allowed to make things stronger. We can't make them less than the state, but we did choose to make them stronger. So in fact, things you can get away with at the state, you can't get away with as a city public official. And that's listed in our SRC chapter 12 and our Salem City Charter, section 62. Who do these ethics apply? Public officials, congratulations. Also to your relatives, spouse, parents, siblings. Well, if you receive a gift, it's members of the public official's household. So if someone's offering you something that's at all related to your position on the board, that's something that goes to us by flag of May. It also applies to your direct family members. And if you own any business, that business is also subject because you're a public official. So your business is also, so if your business is receiving gifts and things along those lines, as a public official, those things could get sideways. Means you're an elected official. You all are appointed officials, a public official as an employee, and if we hire someone in the outside council or an engineer or something, they also have, as agents, have these responsibilities. They can't accept gifts to help out the city. A person is a public official even if they receive no compensation. So congratulations for the unpaid responsibilities.
Well, if we would have known this, I don't know.
What does a business mean? Well, if you own a business, it's a private business entity, corporations, sole proprietorship, partnership, friendship, franchisees. Doesn't include a 501c3 if public official is only a member of the board and is not being paid. So that unique situation that you've got less restrictions. It wouldn't be considered a business. SRC chapter 12 is based on state law, but it's more restrictive, as I mentioned before. Conflict, we've got a conflict of interest rule, appearance of a impropriety or appearance of a conflict. We have special favors, and then non-disclosure of information, city information, or other information that the city's required to maintain confidentiality. Well, we've got an actual conflict of interest. You know, example I like to use is you or your spouse or your brother owns a piece of property that this board may be recommending to the city council that we purchase. Right there, it seems pretty easy. I mean, you wouldn't receive direct, at least go through the way the state does it, the way the city does it. You have an actual conflict of interest if any action or decision by a person acting in their capacity as an official would be the private pecuniary benefit or detriment of the person or relative. Here, you'd have a pecuniary benefit to a relative. SRC, so the state goes with money, we go with any benefit. Yes,
Pecuniary benefit? What is the?
money,
Oh.
financial, more of a financial. Rather than quid pro quo, any benefit or detriment is the way the city does it. So the state ties it to some sort of financial. There can be non-financial benefits that a public official receives in quid pro quo. I'm gonna do this, you don't do that. So the city is much more restrictive that you've got to look at. Are you receiving a benefit as a result of a transaction that's recommended by its council? Know that the city is much broader. It's not just someone cutting you a check or leaving, a stack of money in your back porch or however that would work. What happens if you have a potential conflict of interest? In the state, any action or decision, the effect of which could be the private pecuniary benefit or detriment, which means could be. And then under the city, it's not just that financial, it's any benefit or detriment creates conflict. So, an example of that is, let's see, as a result of you selling your property to the city, the neighbor, you've got a property line problem, agrees to drop his lawsuit. It's not a direct payment, but you've received the benefit. It obviously looks like an appearance of conflicts of interest, and we gotta ensure that we don't do it. If you have a question about a transaction, whether you'll receive a benefit or not, it's something that you have to think about whether you need to disclose it or not. If you have an actual conflict of interest, what do you have to do if you're selling your property? You have to announce your actual conflict and not participate. Okay, and that's the decision that each public official has to make themselves. I can't say, hey, there's conflict of interest. Tori, best say, I think all of you need to think if you have one or not, but the actual determination is made by it. If I wrote you a memo, it would protect you. If Dan wrote you a memo, it would protect you. So it's an individual thing. I'll go through a little bit more on that in just a moment. Again, the city is any benefit, it just doesn't have to be money. Conflict of interest, what are you supposed to do? Well, okay, I'm ultimately selling the property, or a family member of my business is selling a piece of property or some other thing that's gonna, end up benefiting the city. You have to disclose and refrain from discussion and vote. You just don't participate. Abstaining is not sufficient. State law provides a rule. Now, there's rule of necessity that doesn't come up. So if everyone was conflicted out, there couldn't be a recommendation. There are rules in that unique situation that I've never heard about. It generally comes up with, like the state Supreme Court, voting on whether pension benefit raises for all government employees is constitutional or not. They obviously receive a benefit, so the entire judiciary in the state of Oregon was conflicted out. They made rules to ensure that we got someone or somebody that can make those decisions. There's disclosure requirements, but it generally doesn't come up in this type of board. And then the city law requires just remove yourself from the process, step back in when it's over. Potential, and this is something that's a public official, potential conflict of interest. You don't know whether you're gonna receive it, you don't know whether you've got a close enough connection or not. You disclose it, say, I've got a potential conflict of interest, here's what it is, I wanna make sure everyone's aware of it. I don't think it's gonna be an issue at all, you can participate or not, depending on the nature of it. We don't wanna have members of the public look at any of our transactions that happen, and if it looks kind of funny, you might really consider maybe stepping back for that particular one. City ethic code may prohibit voting due to the appearance of impropriety. I think that the average member of the public is gonna look at that transaction and say, there's a conflict. Now, there's an appearance of conflict from, a standard regular citizen of Salem saying, hey, we look at that, so we want our public officials to recognize that and make those disclosures as appropriate. Parents of improprieties are bound to observe in their official acts the highest standards of morality and to discharge faithfully the duties of their office regardless of personal consideration. Their conduct is in both their official and private affairs should be above reproach. So we want to make sure that, our residents of the city of Salem are looking at all our public officials and going, okay, I don't see anything, so that's in our appearance process. You have to engage in fair and impartial fulfillment of your duties. Generally, these don't really apply. Counseling, contacting counselors to obtain preferential consideration in connection with city employment. You guys can't call me counselor and say, hey, I'm a board member, good job. You can't use city-owned property for private use. So I don't know if you guys have issued any automobiles or anything along those lines or phones, but I don't think so. So you can't use city property for personal use. And no public official should grant any special privilege to the citizens beyond what is available to every other citizen. So you can't, give a benefit to one individual person at the detriment or at the exclusion of others. Disclosure of confidential information. Occasionally, information will come across your desk that is confidential or not yet ready to be released to the public. With the cities engaging in real estate transactions under public records laws and public meetings laws, we're hold an executive session so that we can engage in deliberations with council, so that we can make a fair offer on a piece of property. If that was done in the open, the other party would know about it, maybe change the price, and it'd be an unfair deal, at least in arm's length. So you can't disclose confidential information, and you can't use confidential information to make money for yourself, brothers, because there is information that's available. If the city of Salem's expanding over here and this lot's for sale, you can go buy it and later on sell it back to the city. That would be an abuse of your office. Consequences for violations of ethical rules: you got civil penalty, as you saw in Lane County. You could forfeiture of personal property and then status of sanctions. City, you can be removed from office. There's a process for that. And then our city council under section 62, reviewing authority can act accordingly. So we've got a broad brush depending on the nature of any violations that the city can take to ensure that it doesn't happen in the future. Chapter 62, the City of Salem Charter applies, and this is something that's not the most interesting to read, but very important to do so. Applies to elected and appointed officials, requires disclosure of certain gifts, relationships, and campaign contributions. So if you guys receive a gift, it'll be on a pencil or something along those lines. You have to disclose that information. I generally just advise people to. That's just the easiest way. I don't accept dinners. I don't accept anything. I need a notepad and a pencil at a conference. That's about as far as I go. So that's just me. I don't want to, as an attorney, representing the city, ever have anybody that I may come in contact with in the future say, remember we went to the baseball game? So it's easier to do that. Requires approval of the presence of the gift, relationship, or contribution, creates an appearance of impropriety. So you receive those tickets from your buddy, he just so happens to have that piece of property that you're gonna recommend to the city, you've got an appearance of impropriety, you have to disclose and then not participate. Rule of necessity we talked about. We don't need to talk about that because it's likely never going to occur in this setting. Remember, compliance with that ethics laws is your own. I mean, there are resources on this room, but you don't have to be assistant city attorney or the city attorney if he was to say, that's fine. That still does not protect you as a public official. You're above that, you're your own entity or individual. But you're required to comply with both state and city, as I mentioned earlier. If you're complying with the city, you're also complying with the state restriction. What's our role as the city attorney's office when it comes to public officials? Our clients, the city agency, it is, we do not represent public officials in their personal or professional capacity, so I can't give you all individually the advice I can advise the board, board actions, but I can't help you individually. Public officials cannot rely on advice of legal counsel as a defense to violations. Earlier in Wayne County, the city attorney wrote a memo saying this is okay. Court looked at that, so that has about as much weight as the safety for a public official. We can help you through the process and get you pointed in the right direction. We can say, here's the resources, here's the things, here's even some examples and other opinions that have been written by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC. They've set a commission together to provide advice to public officials all across the state, because there are a lot of these potential actual conflict of interest. There's 3 ways to get advice: an informal opinion, which is you can call up the OGC and one of their, or OGEC, you can call up and one of their staff members will give you an informal, I'm thinking of selling this property, I own it, we're gonna recommend selling it to the city council, call the OGEC. And if they said, sure, that's fine, okay? Okay, I've got an email from, okay, now it doesn't help you at all, it doesn't give you an exception, so even a staff member, an unwritten informal staff member, will not protect you as a public official. If they give you a staff advisory opinion, a slightly more formal, that still is not a basis for protection. So if you're a public official, your closest city or county attorney gives you advice, you get an informal staff opinion, and you get a staff advisory opinion, that still will not protect you. You've got 3 levels of protection. Ultimately, you'd have to get a commission opinion, which is a lengthy, multi-month deliberation process, and then that would actually protect you. I don't recall the last time written opinions come out for public officials, so it is a lengthy, long process and require probably a really unique situation that would apply to other public officials. A new written opinion. You can go back and review previous opinions to see if there's something analogous to that. But generally it's easier in case, unless it's really a unique situation, it's just easier to just conflict out and put yourself in that situation. Where to go to ethics advice? We do have a city hearings officer that we contract with, and he can provide some general information. He's also the person that receives and initiates active complaints. If you receive an ethics complaint, it will be first heard by our city hearing officer, but he will also render advisory and interpretations for what's that's worth. So remember all those different layers. You still have to make that ultimate decision yourself. Those may help you in that direction, but they will not protect you. And if you need any of those things, you can either contact me or Dan Hatchets in our city attorney range to get some more information or advice. But OGC previous opinions are a good place to look. Any questions?
A lot of information. Good to know.
I'd recommend through city charter section 62, read the rest of the city charter, but that's regarding public officials. And then if you look at our SRCs, there's a section that will cover that. Most of this is, if you look at it from a member of the public's perception, I think it's a good guide how we member the public media by official ethics decisions. It's a good guidance. It doesn't pass the smell test of your appearance, week, variety, something you may want to inquire yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. So, discussion items 2, review West Salem urban renewal plan, West Salem development advisory complex.
So let me get all of it. Let's see if Salem identified. On the Salem website, you go on there, very specific view search. So when I typically go on there, unless you have it already bookmarked and you can just go there all the time and you're familiar. Otherwise, what I do is I just do a keyword search. I do West Salem urban, and it brings up a bunch of lists that you can find the page that goes to the West Salem urban area. On the page, they have scroll down kind of towards the middle, towards the end. There's the urban renewal plan. So the urban renewal plan drives everything that we do. It's the district that was formed back in 2001, where as property taxes grow, those funds are retained for specific purposes. So the purposes are all delineated in the plan. So if you go in there and you want to understand what I've found from attorneys, city attorneys, and contractual agreements, plans like this, if you start from the back, it's a little bit more substantial. So you actually, you see what it takes to make an amendment to the plan, see what projects are in the plan, and it just speaks to a lot of those details. So if you want to get past a lot of why it was formed and that's background, go to the back, scroll up from there and you'll learn everything you know about the purpose of why it's approved. So really quickly, as far as the projects, as the funding grows, it can be used very specifically for projects in this urban renewal district. These improvements include parks, streets, streetscapes, bike pedestrian facilities, public parking facilities, reserve, rehab, redevelopment. Main reasons you have urban renewal districts is because you have underdeveloped properties, you have blighted properties. And that's definitely been the case we have in the Second Street later. But that's the reason why you have the formation of the district back in 2001 when it was decided to make it possible to obviously the community members of city council acting as a renewal agency determined there's a particular need here, want to address it, meet community concerns, and use this mechanism to do so. So that's how this is put together. Very much a public process, involves all the taxing jurisdictions, because initially all the taxing revenue that's generated by the properties in this district continue to go to the taxing districts up to 2001. All the growth is retained for these specific projects. So it's a big decision. It's hard at first because they don't know what they're going to forego as far as additional revenue. So that's where sometimes you're starting to see a little bit more as far as like school districts or maybe a fire district, these bodies saying, hey, we want to know more about this district, how long is it going to be open, what's the maximum indebtedness, all those details, those are typically in the plan for that reason. It's intended to be current funds for specific purposes on a fixed period of time. So that eventually we'll finish those projects, close it out, and then all in improvements that property tax return to all those tax jurisdictions. So long, lengthy process to create this district plan. So that's a lot of what you'll see at the beginning. It was evolved, what process it took, why, then you'll get into the projects, and how you change a boundary or you have like minor amendments and major amendments. What that process is like.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
And the attorney kind of touched on this. As a board, can we recommend the city purchase a specific property?
Yeah, so that's part of it too. So property acquisition is in the plan. That's what we do. We've done that in multiple locations downtown. So you're advisory to the agency. So you can make really a recommendation on anything. Obviously make sure that it's rooted in plan, that it fits the parameters. So if you see like a street having an issue, connectivity issue, pedestrian safety, redevelopment property opportunity, the background, you say, I think it's the agency should consider looking at this because it's critical for these reasons. You could we could float a motion, seconded, carried by the group. That recommendation could be carried to the agency for consideration. So Yeah, and I think it goes back to Seventh Street, as we've seen people at properties sit for a long time, there are discussions around how do you address that? And one of the ways could be purchase it outright. Demolish it, go through a process to select a developer, partner, build it out. Yeah, so you can do that, let's say. District. Any questions as we looked at the renewal plan or what projects, role is, how it works? I like to say that for the benefit of the district, most of what we do is permanent. If I'm talking to any of you individually, just keep it in mind that it's just if your urban renewal funds can be used for a particular thing, it has to be in the plan and it has to be permanent. It has to be for the benefit of the community, and also most of the time it tends to increase property values. So a lot of time, depending on the location, for example, downtown, funds were used to help build a police facility. That was somewhat contentious. Obviously, there was a need to meet expanding community need for police services and for that facility, but you're only limited funds for a non-taxable purpose. So you're trying to grow a district with revenue stream coming from increased taxable property tax improvement. So now you're pulling that off in downtown core. So those funds could be dedicated to a different project fund. So it can be done. We don't really have any of those situations in Salem. We haven't been approached like consider building a fire station in our district. Those are outside the district for the most part. So it does happen, but for the most part, we try to stick to the plan and identify properties in the district that could meet a particular need and could help grow that tax base.
Yeah, city limits versus UGB.
Yeah, okay. So another reason why we have the renewal districts is in Oregon, we have distinct land use processes. One of those is urban growth boundaries. So to preserve forest land, farmland, we identify where you can build dense city type development. And that's within the urban growth boundary. And it's set up by the state. Salem has a pretty big one. When you go to smaller communities, usually it's smaller. They get to a point where they have to balance a 20-year land supply for various purposes. They have to do a lot of studies for like opportunity analysis, housing needs, and those things. A lot would try to keep it a single story. The intent was to prevent what's happening on the West Coast and spoil. So even though you're a smaller community with a smaller urban growth boundary, you can't make a case just because you're building to that boundary, you need to expand it, because then the state would come back and say, well, you start going vertical. You have to go high density infill. A lot of times those are the smaller communities, hard conversations to have because they don't necessarily want to get big, really fit their identity. So it's back and forth, and once they start to address that, and then have a need to expand and go through a process to expand their growth boundary. But the difference between a city limit is you could have, Salem, a lot of property that are, you have your city Salem boundary. You could have properties in the county, there's Polk or Marion, still in the urban growth boundary outside your city limits, and that's where the annexations come. Typically annexations, they have to be touching your city boundary. So they have to go through a process and say, we'll not be annexed into the city, or right here, other property's been annexed, kind of the next, go through a process to get annexed to the city, then that city boundary would change. And that can happen until you get the urban growth boundary is bigger, city limits is smaller. So you can grow out to your urban growth boundary.
So if you get annexed in certain property, you get annexed into city that doesn't touch the.
Yeah, so it
Potentially.
depends. Yeah, so and I'm sorry, I didn't have this ready yet, bring in the visuals of the city limits or the city or urban growth boundary. So the urban growth boundary is bigger, city limits is smaller, and they're going out to the urban growth boundary. So Yes, as long as it's touching the boundary of the city limits, you can be annexed in, and you're still in the urban growth boundary, then you can't go outside the urban growth boundary. It's like, it's fixed, you can't, you couldn't annex into the city outside of, you'd have to go through process, and there might be, I haven't been involved, I've been in meetings where Salem and Kaiser share the same urban growth boundary, and Kaiser's constrained, they wanna go. Most of the property that's shared is in the city limits. I think Department of Land and Conservation Development have agreed to allow some things out there, but I'm not sure. But they're probably the most recent one I've been involved in, where they've been engaged to, because they're constrained. And they share ours, and we have a lot of land in the Salem to the south. So it's back and forth that way.
Is our discussions as a body limited to city limits or being just kind of?
Yeah, so we have ODOT here, so you're definitely impacted by improvements, say on 22, actions of Salem. So I'd say conversations, as far as your decision, you're constrained, as far as recommendation. I mean, you could probably bring something up, you probably want to tie it. My suggestion would be if you have like an issue in the city, let's say it's South Salem and it's not tied to West Salem. You want to find a way that it touches your plan and your specific purpose as a body. You don't want to be recommended like bus service to South Salem because somehow it benefits West Salem. You know what I mean? Like it'd have to be something significant, either, you know, if you have house issues where you have crime, those kind of things, then you would probably say, then I would say it would be in your purview to say, as West Salem, we're seeing crime uptick. We want to make a recommendation to you know, the urban renewal agency to fund something for those resources because we're seeing that impact what we're trying to do here. You know, we can't do the objectives on our plan, and as a body, because we're seeing it hampered by these things. And I would say it would be fitting to make some kind of recommendation outside of your specific district because it's being impacted by that. But otherwise, I would try and go small to your specific purpose in your district and then go out from there. Yeah. So all the details in the urban plan, if you want to go through that, feel free. We've also provided either, you know, for older members, you have the booklet. Since then, we've had like the electronic PDF, so you can get that too. Then on the, as far as the bylaws for West End Redevelopment Advisory Board, what that gets into is why it was organized, term limits. So like we just did, usually the first meeting, the first of the year being the fiscal year. So we do July, but you don't usually meet on July because you have the conflicts with the board. So it's usually August or September. You have to at least meet quarterly. And at that first meeting, you pick a chair and vice chair. So just like you did. And then as far as duties, I'll just address that similar to the urban renewal plan. If you start from the back and go towards the first beginning, a lot of why it was formed is the beginning, get to the meat of it towards the end. So like board duties, for example, rehabilitation of existing buildings, new retail office development, pedestrian amenities and beautification, industrial development, housing, transportation, transit, land acquisition, renewal plans, public improvements, future development, tax allocation, budgeting. These are the reasons why you come together. So when you bring up something that could be outside of your district, could be a broader city concern, I'd start there and say like, okay, I'm going to raise an issue, let's say tied to security and vandalism because we're seeing an uptick in certain things. So is this within my scope as a advisory board? If it's that, then go to the plan and see, okay, we have project options that can mitigate that issue. And then you could bring it to the group and say like, this fits this, this fits this. I want to make a recommendation to the agency to consider a resource center, something in the district to address whatever the issue. Makes sense? So in here it talks about, for the most part, decorum, you know, you guys are very professional and kind with each other, that's kind of the intent. It's a community service. It's a community service, so, yeah. So you try to keep it amicable and arrive to a consensus. Obviously, sometimes there are situations where you'll have to bring points of view. It's okay to just keep it cordial. And it's, you know, if you don't support the approach, by all means, you don't have to go along with it. You can say whatever reason, or you don't even really have to realize your reason. You can say, you know, sort of fit for, I don't really see this as being important or whatever, and say no to their opinions. But for the most part, try and be cordial and arrive to a consensus. Any questions on?
We can change the time of the meeting by.
You can change it, it's very specific, talks about 7:30, so let's say 7:30 to 9 is what it says. You can change the bylaws.
That's what I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah,
I love 7:30.
yeah,
What does everyone think? Well, thank you very much. What does
Sure.
everyone think about 7:30?
I'm good with it, it's just speaking out the way.
That's a good point.
I think we should start bringing drinks.
You want to buy a lot too.
So I have an example or a question. So, I'm into like bike riding, an electronic bike course, and we're going down like, you know, from Salem and Wallace down to the park and then over the pedestrian bridge. And there's a lot of going through the park, or I guess on, it's a Glen Creek that goes down, right, guys?
oh, yeah, to the park.
Across and
Yeah, across,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And there's just a lot of, obviously like riprap and spray painting and so on and so forth. And I feel like as soon as you get over the pedestrian bridge, it's like cleaned up. It's the next, that's the park. Is there a is there, I guess it's in our review, that we can recommend that someone clean that up? Is that like a beautification fund? Is that something that we can?
Yeah, you could just, that's a.
It's not about me,
You
it's
can
just,
just-
I've noticed it because I'm like, you know.
Yes, you see those kind of things, we have resources to, something's tagged or whatever, you're out there, you say, oh, something's tagged or vandalized, you can let me know.
Okay.
So it's not, I would say, something to keep in mind too, that urban funds can't be used for maintenance, it's building new things, so, you know, we've had members before saying, Edgewater Parkway has sections of sidewalk that you, so you have to like design what they want to do. It's similar to a street. We don't just go in there to, you know, take out little sections, it's all about like building something new. So yes, you could do it, so it gets in that discussion as a recommendation for the group is the best use of funds for what your objectives are. So it's a sidewalk, the city or the state should come around eventually and address it. So there are other ways to tag to address that.
Just to get an idea of the scope and what we, you know. So no maintenance.
Do you look personally or as a, by. We have on a personal level, we've been dealing with topics. The complimentary of his role, he gave us his cell number because we have different. There are means to kind of reach out and get some expedited reactions.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so. One of the projects we're looking at now is at Musgrave connecting where you walk underneath the exit ramp. So there's a quicker connection from Edgewater Parkway to Union Street. And there's a lot of, since that is a mobile facility, they'll camp underneath that exit ramp. So it's the same thing. And the more that you raise tagging or unhoused pollution, encampments, they're typically city and state resources that can get out there to respond. So if
And
you
that's-
see, if you come across something,
Yeah, the park there is being utilized for soccer, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
kids. So, I was just thinking about that.
you know, we just had the national softball
Yeah.
competition, so there were efforts that cleaned up. It's been an encampment out there for a long time, as you go north along Lost River. So it's been an issue for a long time. It started before COVID and it improved during COVID. So I can tell you that there's multiple agencies coming together to talk about you remove them, where you put them, and
Gotcha.
how do you go about it. So they're aware of it. There are instances where there's an immediate safety concern or pollution. They can have a team to resolve it, but some of the bigger encampments don't get to it hopefully. So,
I'd love to have that cell number just.
yeah, I can give you, we have code compliance and cleanup teams, I can give you links too, so.
Not just at
Either I
the
can get
park,
to,
but other areas.
Yeah.
Okay. So no maintenance, okay.
no maintenance, yeah. Just think about, if we're gonna make a suggestion to do something, you're basically doing something.
They cleared out Wallace, they moved up with their heights.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Okay, I wasn't sure if they fully. I know it was talk that was happening, okay?
Where that was.
Oh, over here too, I guess,
yeah,
yeah,
that's why we get affected by Gateway. When they cleared out Gateway.
Yeah.
They pushed them up I-5 and they flooded everything. Yeah, Hawthorne and Lancaster. So gonna go some,
That's right.
So, yeah, we had people parked, where the wide pullouts are and Orchard Heights up there. We had a couple of, vehicles being used as housing that were staying over the weekend. I don't know if they're
The part, I mentioned that before, you were saying, it's only goes here. And once you get into the park,
Yeah, downtown.
is there like a different groups that take care of like just like park boundary? Versus coming into this rest of the city, like in like what she's saying?
yeah, the parks has resources, they're. For the most part, I would say, if you're dealing with hazardous things, there's a specific city team that has to go in, parks isn't going to, because it's a safety issue for them. It's not maintained any different, I would say that there's parts of Wall Spring Park that can be a little bit more, rural. So, where Riverfront Park, I would say that a lot of it is activity based, so most of Riverfront Park is utilized, so. Those encampments, they don't want to be where people are. So if you have a lot of activities, say Riverfront Park is going to deter them from building encampment. That's why you see a lot of the more over natural rural parts of Wall Spring Park is where they tend to congregate. So, yeah, I would say, I don't think there's really a difference in dedication of resources to those. It's just some of the other parts of the community where there's localized activities, so they feel like it's a good spot. They'll start to expand and more people come and that's an issue. But I would say if you start to see small encampments popping up, notify people so they can address it. That's no favorite issue. And if you come across things being discarded or tagging, you can get clients who can contact. Rather than go through period. Any other questions about urban plan, bylaws?
Thank you. Any questions before we move on?
Whose jurisdiction is like the waterway? So the waterway,
I think it's state for it depends on the type of waterway, but. State perspective,
Yeah, there's stick piece of equipment. Every reason in the world to wait 6 months, what do you hear from all of them?
And that makes sense. I appreciate you mentioning, thank you for asking, because there's a significant difference from the waterfront park to Wallace to, where else did we go? You know, it's just like, I feel like, you know, I think a lot of people are, you know, perception of Wallace is like the exception. Like where all the garbage goes, if you will. And there was kids and there's soccer's going on and softball still going on, and they're like, it's pretty disturbing what I saw right in front of me. Yeah, so it was, yeah, be nice to see it cleaned up, just like,
As a city reference has a,
I'm trying to be
Good
really
atmosphere.
careful what I say.
Yeah.
Minto Brown Parks, same thing, because I'm surprised the difference. It's very odd, and it's been 7 months. Anyways, just, yeah,
I
I'm
think
just
that
a little
they-
surprised.
I think for the softball, there's something like that.
Was that,
I guess the more activity, the more as a community go out there and report and provide some activity and pressure, hopefully doesn't come back. But I think that's, yeah, people aren't directed. I can tell you, being in meetings, there are park staff that are very much loyal and loving the Fall Spring Park and like when it became. So there, some of those meetings can get kind of contentious where it's like, you know, yes, these people don't know where to go, but they're destroying, say, have like unique turtles and things over there where it's habitat. So it's like you ruining habitat, natural environment. So yeah, they share your concerns.
yeah,
I think most of the community does. So it's really a matter of trying to do what we can to provide some help resources, but then it's just a matter of figuring out this,
yeah.
the resources.
I just think of those kiddos, you know.
Yeah.
Mothers and fathers.
yeah.
I think it's trash. But I was just, you know, you hear about it, but you see it.
I think
Totally different.
probably a big reason for that though is it backs up to the homes, I mean, good traffic and
Yeah.
stuff, so people,
Yeah.
again, it might just be the presence of, yeah.
Second Street Northwest Tory again. It's your day. Second Street status. Walking tour, so done walking tour.
Okay, so Second Street's open, we still have the barricades on it, when we were suited to they're an active architect behind the plantings. Yeah, so they still have some of the barriers and things out in this picture, but it's fully open now. The nice thing about this view is all those previous Oregon crew buildings, they're under redevelopment, changing a lot of activity out that way. Also, you don't see probably the most significant blighted property we've had that helped justify the formation of the district is the Rain Street building there as you approach Wallace to the east. That's totally down. There's a section that's retained. I think they're talking about maybe building on it, but that's probably the only piece that you see out there. I think they're using the property to allow some trucks to stage and park there. Otherwise, it's totally taken down. So it's a whole different view, a whole other access point. So it's nice to see traffic using it, and went through this section actually as it comes to the west into the neighborhood I was the most concerned about. Providing a new road through industrial development, that's always welcomed. Because if that's redeveloping, it's their burden to do the proportionate share, as you know, with goodwill. So that was an easy one, but going through where you already had existing facilities, even though the street was wider, the sidewalks were really narrow. So it's not the best conditions to go through, disrupt them. They had dirt and gravel for a long time, a lot of activity, and for the most part, people were supportive, they were accommodating, were great to work with. There were a few instances where we got approached to either expand the driveway or add a lot of different, so of course, welcome, especially while we're getting ready to form, we did that feedback to it so we could build it the way they wanted it. So yeah, all worked out. So this is one of those things too, where we do permanent things. So these trees and plants as you go through, if something starts to die, we have a establishment piece that's tied to our permanent improvement. So if you start to notice, because what I noticed going through there is these stakes that support the trees. Same people can use it for firewood or what, they'll just pull those out almost immediately. So I try to let people know as soon as those are pulled that, my concern is, they don't have those, the trees will go forbidden in the street, it's like, you're gonna have to pull a tree out or it's gonna stay. So if you see something, if you're going through there, bring it to my attention, I'll raise it to contractors. We have a warranty period, we have establishment period, so making sure that it's weed free, the trees are growing right. I noticed on that Patterson corner, that's where we're gonna have our artwork, by the way. There's also, I think, an oak that's over there that looked dead, so I was gonna raise that to the same group. But if you notice that, I'll try to have it addressed.
I don't know if we talked about this. Or so you think. The business plan. I mean, we've had this conversation before, but I'm just curious now that those are filled
Or the,
with landscaping.
so we do have, our same contractors that'll be used for establishment, if there's weeds and things. Or if there needs to be plants, they'll do that, but as far as like day to day, yeah, we'll probably get to where. It's. Yeah, it doesn't have water, so it's all city
Oh,
and
okay.
irrigated, yeah, no, that's separate. Yeah, we're establishing it, so we certainly pay for water through here while the plants get established. I think it probably stay that way, it probably decrease over time as the plants get established, but that's not type of versus.
Walls.
Well,
Yeah, so you could have, you have one of these planters in front of the business or a house. I expect those up there and trim it down, but it's too tall. I think for the most part, they'll get in trouble if they pull a tree or they start eating plants, because we have to have plantings on the street,
I
but
sure hope so, because, I mean, so much, I mean, it looks beautiful, but some of those, yeah, how long's the warranty? We'll be out there pulling weeds.
And that's part of
Probably one of our meetings.
One of the underfunded aspects is
yeah,
parks, and they just aren't gonna be able to.
yeah, that's.
So you saw that with ODOT happened out there. I mean, that was gorgeous when they put it in 15 years ago, and it's nothing now. They paved it over. They couldn't maintain it.
That's some of what
That's a
went into
shame.
this. So when you look at the plantings, a lot of it's densely planted. Because we don't have those resources, we can't go back in and say like, okay, we're gonna pay for a maintenance person to come in and weed it. So we wanna make sure that it's grown in and you don't have the weeds, opportunity for the weeds to come in. What can happen is when the dense plantings, they can get kind of tall, so then it's just, yeah, it'll be the street crew that comes through and then have the whole city. So it might be like, it's a year they have to come out, trim it down or something. So in that case, yeah, it could be.
Was it GT Landscaping that did all that?
Green thumb,
Oh, okay.
the installation, Greenworks did the. So,
And how cool for the property owners that couldn't afford a new driveway, that was it to work with that, awesome.
and we maintained the parking, that was something that was critical. We knew going to the east in the business district, they'd want eventually to have street parking. But they were already using it all through the residential side, so that was important to keep that.
Plus people can start doing their e-bikes down there and crossing over wall, loving it. It's just another bike path, loving it. Yay, any?
Oh, walking tour, sorry, didn't know it was the same, forgot that it was the same bullet. So we talked about, it would be separate from the meeting in September. So just wanted to throw out there as far as the group is concerned, like to meet at Goodwill and then walk some of Second Street. Get a sense of, things that are happening, get like formal rain suite working through. So are there dates, times, this is one of those where I'll work with Brian to make sure that it's. We might have to post on the website that you guys are meeting, but it won't be like a notice colored meeting. Statement here that you might talk
We
about.
can't
People
talk
showing
about
up
it.
at the tour, like, Tori's like a tour guide.
Yeah.
But it's the most logical, just.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it the same
Long as
day,
it's not
right?
raining.
Agreed.
Okay.
No rain here,
Okay,
Yeah, that.
Can't do rain.
yeah,
as long as it's sunny.
well, and it's usually more, it'll be first of September, so it's usually good weather, so we can do it after the meeting, that's the sports meeting, that's. Okay, so that works, since we'll start over.
And come with a
Work.
cool weather, like Kentucky Valley.
Anything work.
John's like providing some.
It's a little further away.
Sorry. Yeah, we can, so that's September 4th. Yeah. Things possible.
It's the fourth,
Yes.
Yay, that'll be fun.
so we'll say, it's could go till 9, so do you want to do? Should 9:30, 10?
Whenever we get there from here, basically. And we can look at that, I think what they do, I can like do a tour of the back of the Goodwill, most people get like super pumped about that, cause like, everyone sees the front side, yeah, no one gets to see what happens in the back, so like, we can start there and get more done.
Sounds good.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think we could.
That would be good too, because we'll be able to see from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll be able to see from there, that's another thing that's not on the agenda, is First Street vacation. So they already went through, because the developer planned a cul-de-sac. So if you remember, probably it's been a year ago, we went to city council to vacate First Street. The remainder piece from your vacation. So the developer changed, and now it's going to be vacated as, so we'll maintain public connectivity as an outlet for First Street to Linden. So you'll be able to see that from here. You know, we start there, look at it, we can see what will happen eventually at First Street.
On that weird kind of.
Yeah, it's weird, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
not,
that'd be
yeah,
great.
it's a weird area.
When is that gonna start?
We have public hearing on the 12th August.
Nice. Okay, so should we say 9:30 at Goodwill on September
I'm
4th?
just gonna block out that in the head and we can get all of
Yeah,
this.
sounds good.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome, so moving on, latest from West Salem organizations. I guess that would be me. August, we had our 4th annual golf tournament. It was successful. I think we ended up having 15 to 18 teams, so it's not really big, but it was well attended. It was fun. Time. August 22nd is the next general member meeting, and that's at Red Hawk at 3 o'clock. So John Patapoli is going to be doing his thing. He talks about the wine industry, and I think he's doing a little bit of pairing with his wine. So that is what is going on with us. Any questions? I would love to see you guys there.
I'm really quick, I attended the neighborhood association last week, the topic of the vacation of First Street was there, it was up, they were supportive. And Brittany Randall represents Clutch Industries, they own property on First Street. I spoke a little bit to the development that land over there, also a lot of the work that's happening on Second Street. So generally well received group. Most part of their meeting was electing the chair, vice chair, same group of people, but section of the meeting. Gone through similar to what we did here. Yeah.
Would love to comment on what the Clutch is doing first.
So Brittany spoke to it. I only know certain things. Brittany's the one who's the planner, helping them through the process, so she had more details. That's true, she did. But they were supportive of, First Street, when Clutch builds out, they'll have to, as part of their agreement to get property through the vacation, would be to repair that. When you go out there, you'll see First Street does a really bad dip, it's disrepaired. So we'll have to build it to an alley standard, so it'll have to be approved. So that would be better, if that happens.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That little area is just really coming up. Nice. Any questions? Okay. Next meeting topics. Anyone have any ideas?
On the calendar we had scheduled, they have a county representative, so like a full county commissioner speak, maybe have counselors speak. Yeah, that work for, if you have anybody else on the policy side you want to hear from?
Let me
Right
know.
then. Yeah, it could be Lyle, I mean, that's who's come in the past.
So what is our ward in West? 5,
Oh, yeah, for the, that's a good question. Oh, we're 2,
what's her name? She does the fly fishing. Sorry.
Marcy. I'm sorry, like,
Maybe. 8.
yeah, we have Staples and 2, I think we're 1. So we carry part of downtown, I don't know. If it's 1.
It's one
Yeah,
and a
1 or
little
2.
slice of one and then 8.
Should we have 2?
Yeah, reach out to them. Right,
Thanks,
update.
Yeah, let's get them on the spot.
Yeah.
John's like on his way out, obviously.
Yeah, we Berlin people, and then I'm like, see you guys later.
You're kind of like, Mark, something like that. And just an idea, what about, having someone from like, I don't know if this is even appropriate, Chief Womack or Hope County,
Yeah.
like at some point,
Police or something,
fire, police, talk about,
it's what Salem.
It was also in that same for
I think they're
that,
interesting.
talk about. He's like head of the homeless
Oh, yeah.
task force,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Talking about
I think that's,
spaces or whatever.
Well, West Salem Library, what's gonna become of it?
I feel like, they're open a couple days a week at certain times.
They on by public comment. Reserved some slice, but I don't know what it is. I didn't pay that much attention to but it's way reduced.
I know that they got a new spring television.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
So that's a lot of suggestions. I will take us through
Sounds good.
till almost next school year. Right? Fire, commissioners, like,
That's not how you want them to talk or how many questions you have, I guess.
well, I'm excited to do the September walkabout. That'll be fun, something different. Sure.
For the next thing too, we should probably like talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Financial.
Oh, come on, I included that.
Start of the year, so.
Yeah, I included that in the packet, so this is the Q4, this is the end of the fiscal year. And this shows, so we'll be providing updates on the budget quarterly. So this is the end of the quarter.
So we did like a Q1, basically. for the
Yeah.
next meeting.
Sounds good. That would be good.
And so. Looks like, just like adding lines, Second Street.
Yeah,
That's
Second
awesome.
Street was under budget.
Awesome. That never happens, right, guys, with construction nowadays?
That's not right.
Great.
So vacation at First Street too, so that was one that said we had funding, but it was, so it's carried over, but it wasn't identified properly, because technically it's already done it. So, Clutch had to use their engineer to pay for, new survey, new, legal description. The only thing that we're paying for now is for city staff review, so that's why that is.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we're officially adjourned. Are you guys okay with that?
Ruby, that's good.
Thank you all for being here.